Um, I was thinking about this topic. I didn't do it on TV because I didn't know if it was worthy. Stephen A. Smith, LeBron James had that interaction, right? And it's funny. I've always been a fan of LeBron, and I know Stephen A. I texted him twice recently. Former teammate over at ESPN, and I'm always sensitive. I'm glad my son and daughter did not choose broadcasting. I wouldn't want them to be compared to their dad. And if they got criticized, my take is, well, you got into this business. So, my first reaction is Bronny James is a Laker because Clutch Sports and LeBron James made sure everybody knew we want him to be a Laker. He was not a dominant college player. In fact, his size and skill set is really not that of an NBA player. He's 6'2", but not a point guard. Not a lot of 6'2" off guards in NBA history. And right now he's not shooting particularly well. He's athletic. He's a good kid, smart. I think he was draftable. It was one of the weaker drafts. I defended the Lakers drafting him. A great draft, maybe not. In this draft, which was one of the weaker drafts, about every fourth or fifth NBA draft, this draft coming up is very domestic and very, very interesting at the top. There's some really good players from great programs. Last year was an international draft and a lot of projecting. Didn't have a problem being draft. It was a bit of a flex for Clutch Sports and LeBron to get him in LA, kind of a power flex. And again, you're making $8 million. You were wedged into an organization that probably, in most years wouldn't have drafted a player of your skill level. I tend to defend journalists having the right to opinions, and people say, "Well, here's one of the things where I think LeBron James, in his mind, is doing the right thing. Don't badmouth my son." But I've seen many broadcasters get their kids into broadcasting, and their kids aren't very good. Some are, some are not. And that's the reality of a public-facing job. Mayor, basketball player, sportscaster. You're not. This is not a job that's. You write annuities or you're in waste management. Like everybody knows his name. So my take is, listen, you have an $8 million contract. You're fair game, right? That's the way it goes. But you played basketball. Know LeBron, his kind of ideology, the way he thinks. What was your sort of take on it?
It's interesting. I've been thinking so much about this over the course of the last couple of weeks because it's a dynamic that I relate to a certain extent. I remember like when I was playing at Arizona Christian, when I was in NAIA, I remember like watching a broadcast of a game, and I was having a brutal shooting season. When I was in college, this was the season that I had my worst 3-point shooting season. I was in my head. I was in this like small role where I was taking all these catch and shoot threes out of the corner, and I was just having a brutal offensive season. And so I was struggling with it, and I heard this announcer who was announcing one of the games like talking junk about me in the broadcast. And I remember getting like super upset about it because I'm like, I'm taking 300 shots a day. I'm doing everything I can to fix this problem. And this like dude who has no idea what I'm doing is criticizing the way that I'm playing. And like, I think about that a lot from NBA players where I get it. Like me relative to an NBA player, even as someone who played, me relative to an NBA player, I don't have the cachet or the reputation to be able to criticize the greatest basketball players in the world. And so on a certain level, I sympathize with the plight. But then what you said is the most important context there. We chose a career that exists in the public view. I have a relatively small platform among the big shots in the media world. I deal with a shit ton of negativity every day. I can't even imagine what you deal with. We won't even go there. But there's just this outrageous amount of negativity. To your point, Colin, like I'm living the dream. I love my job. I love the flexibility that I have. I love that I get to talk about the game of basketball. This opportunity that you have given me has changed my life infinitely for the better. And so I would never sit there and hyper focus on this like specific part of my job that's a negative because it's just so worth it. And that's really what it comes down to is like from the NBA player's perspective, it's just the reality of the predicament that they're in. They have this wonderful life that comes from being a professional basketball player, but it comes with this criticism. The second piece of it is, to me, the criticism is authentic and necessary. And I was thankful in LeBron's tweet thread that he included in there, like, hey, when players fail, we need to discuss it. And I'm so glad he said that, because here's the thing: sports are nasty. They're mean. They're violent. You talk shit. You
Yeah.
step on each other to get to the finish line. It is inherently nasty, and there's a winner and a loser. And in order for us to discuss the winner and the loser, it inherently requires us to be critical from time to time. It is part of the job. If we
Yeah.
came on every day and we just only said nice things about players, we'd have no credibility. There's a certain amount of this to where it makes it mean more when we say a player succeeds if we also criticize them when they fail. My thing with it is like, just make sure you're doing your homework. Like, if you're going to criticize someone,
Yeah.
make sure it's based in the homework. You know what I mean? Because at a certain point, if you're just talking shit to talk shit, now we're entering down a darker path. But I found this really fascinating, because on one hand I relate to players, but on the other hand, like, this is just
Yeah.
the reality of the situation that we're in.
Yeah, that's why I asked you. Yeah, because you played college basketball, and I've tried to never make it personal. Although, like I said for years about Carmelo Anthony, I'm like, man, if you're not willing to play defense, James Harden, I felt the same way. You're not a great teammate, because defense is effort. Offense is a lot of skill. It's a lot of fun. Playing defense sucks. It's hard. So what you're basically saying, if you won't defend, and I feel this about Luka, is, yeah, I'm kind of above that. Well, the other 10 guys aren't. So I've always thought when players don't commit to the defensive end, I think less of them. And you're kind of sending a message to teammates, hey, you do that. I'll do the fun part. And so that's one of the reasons I've always respected LeBron, is in his defense in the last 20 games. Jesus, it doesn't even make sense for a 40-year-old. So and I've always been a huge LeBron fan, and I actually supported the Lakers drafting Bronny. I supported Bronny playing in that game so the father-son record could be set. I'm for it. I was a little critical when he had one good, really nice G League game, and they quickly moved him up, to the Lakers. And I'm like, guys, now you're asking me as a broadcaster to lie to the
Mhm.
audience, and I'm not going to do that. Is that he's not an NBA player. He may work himself into a, eighth, ninth guy in a roster, and I'm rooting for that, because I really do think Savannah and LeBron have done a wonderful job considering this generational wealth. They're good people. They're grounded as much as you can be if you're Ronaldo, Messi, LeBron, Brady, right? Like, you just kind of bake in some of this shit ain't normal, right? So it's just interesting. I think the audience wants me to have definitive takes and take a side. But I think Stephen A. Smith does have a right to be honest about Bronny. But I also get the dad part. But I do come back to, listen, the minute you made that decision to wedge Bronny onto the Lakers, the most sacred part of sports is the uniform. You gave somebody a uniform, and many question whether he is uniform worthy at the NBA level. Like, you can say what you want that owners do and GMs do, but that uniform in any sport, that is what makes grown men cry. They work 20 years to wear an NBA uniform. Hell, it can be a 10-day contract, man. If you get 10 days in the NBA for the rest of your life, I was an NBA player. And so when you get somebody to put that jersey on for the Los Angeles Lakers, there's going to be some animosity. There are people going to say, "Wait a minute, time out now. Come on now." And so it's one of those, I know I'm supposed to take a side on this. And I've said this to people privately, I don't talk about this, that, the Ukraine, Putin, Zelensky, Russia, United States, it's way more complicated. I've watched more video on that story in the last 6 months than everything except sports. There's a lot of complexity with NATO and the history of Russia and us. And sometimes I'm if I'm ever critical of the media, social media has made simplicity the go-to apparatus. And I think Bronny, Stephen A., LeBron, I think it's complicated. I think there's the dad thing, there's the history thing, there's the journalist thing. And I hated to see it because I love LeBron and I really like Stephen A. Smith. I like them both. They're really good at what they do. And I know that's considered a soft pedal, but that's how I feel about it. Sorry to interrupt this great video, but please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Now back to the video.
It's so fascinating because you're asking people to just bring a little bit of nuance into the discussion with the LeBron Stephen A. Smith thing, and there's just none of that.
Nobody
There's none of
wants it.
that. There's like this
Yeah.
huge anti-LeBron, he's ruining Bronny's life kind of angle, and then there's the Stephen A. Smith step to LeBron, and now LeBron's getting in his face and he's paying the price for his actions. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm doing the lip reading when I'm watching LeBron, and he's saying like keep my son out of this. And to your point, on a very basic level, Bronny is an NBA player with a large profile. He's going to get discussed. Like there's no universe where he's not going to be criticized like that. Like
And played at USC and Sierra Canyon. He was a high-profile high school
exactly.
player.
And so like to me, it's like on a very basic level, we have to acknowledge Stephen A's right to discuss Bronny. like that's very to me that's a very simple part of it. But then there's another reality, which is like, okay, LeBron probably feels like Stephen A's used him a little bit like a punching bag over the course of the last, year or two. And I think LeBron's sick of it and he's lashing out. So on one hand, I'm like, okay, I also support LeBron's right to confront Stephen A and be like, hey, dude, what the heck? But like the specific point he decided to argue regarding his son, it's hypocritical because to your point, as soon as you elevate Bronny to this level, how could you possibly hope to protect him from that type of criticism? It's part of the deal.
Well,
You've dealt with it, LeBron. You are the most polarizing player in NBA history. Like this, this.
let me add something else that I think, again, is nuanced. One of the reasons I've always been so impressed with LeBron James, he didn't grow up with a father. Okay, it's pretty understood that both parents can, over the course of time, be very beneficial to any child who then becomes an adult. LeBron James has stayed out of trouble, and he did not have that guiding, strong hand of a father. And yet, you would never know it. He's been a terrific father, a terrific husband, a wonderful businessman. He is such a good friend. I know two of LeBron's friends. LeBron's a great friend. And could I argue that LeBron takes so much pride in being a father because he did not have that at home, that he is going to err on the side of overprotective? And I'm going to defend the hell out of LeBron for that, right? Like, I'm sorry. Now, again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm too sympathetic. And my dad wasn't always around, but he was around enough that I had a dad. And he was the local town optometrist, and I was very proud. And he gave me multiple moments of wisdom and advice and a spanking or two when I turned the sprinkler on as he was trying to move it, and whack, 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 hit my dad as he had his white doctor jacket on heading to work and was soaked and had to go back inside. I got spanked that day. I was laughing hysterically for a while. So I have these moments in my life where my father had a great impact. I mean, I was talking to a friend the other day about a moment that my dad said something when he was like, I was 12 years old. It has been with me my entire life. And so maybe I'm just being too overly sympathetic, but LeBron didn't have a father at home. And if he's erring on the side of, hey, man, I protect my family. This is it for me, man. This is a bubble that I am gonna, if I'm erring on the side of overprotective, I got LeBron's back on that. And that's the kind of stuff I think of as somebody that's divorced, 6 kids are in my life. How do I be a step parent? I think about all that stuff. Maybe I'm too old and protective, but I think it's more complex than Stephen A's a bad guy and LeBron's a good guy. And it's just, that's not the way life is, right?
No, I agree. And to your point, like there's the motivating factor is something that all parents can relate to. It kind of goes back to what we were talking about just in overall player criticism. Just because the player is being unrealistic about the realities of his profession and the fact that criticism comes with that profession, it doesn't make it and like I also relate to that player when he pushes back and when the player goes like today Kevin Durant tweeted at Skip Bayless. Like I also understand the reason why he might want to clap back. Even though Kevin Durant should be realistic about the fact that he's one of the greatest players of all time,
What
therefore
happened?
media
I missed
criticism.
it. Tell me, tell me, tell me.
Basically, Skip Bayless said that Kevin Durant looks like he's already mentally retired. And then KD tweeted at him and said, I guess that means both of us are washed.
By the way, I watched that game. Katie had 21, 9,
I
and 8.
know.
He was pretty
KD's been
good.
awesome this year. Like the Suns
Yes.
issues are like entirely organizational. KD is I think if someone gets KD this summer, he's gonna walk right in and help a
Same.
team win a title or at least get him close. Like he's
Ab-
so good. He's so
oh,
good.
oh, he's so good. I would love to sit down and break bread with Kevin Durant. I really love
Yeah.
the guy. I think he's such a fun player. I like everything about him. I hated him leaving Golden State, but he's such a unique all-time player. I love Kevin Durant. I love watching him play.
Mhm.
I like his quirky personality. Jason Timpf, host of Hoops Tonight. This was
Mhm.
fantastic. I had some NFL news before you, but this was really good. Let me throw this out there, folks. The Steelers are going to sign DK Metcalf to a 5-year, $150 million contract. I'm just telling you, I wouldn't do it, and I like DK Metcalf. That is way too much money for a wide receiver, especially for an organization that can't figure out offense. As always, Jason, your money.
It
Thanks,
was good to
buddy.
see you, Colin. Looking forward to next time.